Welcome to this new video in LINQ tutorials. Today I will introduce you the second quantifier operator in LINQ, any operator. In the last video I talked about the first quantifier operator, all operator. In this video you will learn any operator, and also the difference between any and all operators. Let's first see the definition of any operator. It determines whether any element of a sequence exists or satisfies a condition. As you see, I have underlined the most important points in the definition. Here we have any element, which means at least one element or more than one, or also all elements. And here we have two parts, exists and satisfies a condition. So this operator has two overloads, which means that we can use this operator in two different ways. How to use and what does each one mean, I will show you in a moment. One last thing about this operator. We can use it only as method, which means that we can either use it in method syntax or in mixed syntax. If you don't know what does each one mean, please check the following video, where I explain these ways in detail. And the result of this operator is always of type Boolean. It means that we don't get elements as output using this operator, but we get true or false. Let's now see, what do these two parts mean and how to use them in a LINQ query. Let's check the first one, exists. It determines whether a sequence contains any elements. In other words, we use this operator to check if the sequence contains any elements or it's empty. That's all what this operator for. We use this operator without any condition or variables. We only set the operator after the sequence, what we want to check. Let's see the following example to understand it better. I have the following integer array, which contains 4 numbers. And I use the operator any. So here we check if the array contains any elements. As you see, we have 4 numbers, so it contains even more than one element. The result in this case is true. Let's see another query. Here we also have an array, but it contains strings. The result in this case is also true, because the array contains elements and it's not empty. Let's see the following query, where we have an empty array. The result in this case is false, because we don't have any elements in the array. As you see, it's very simple to use the operator. I used it only for arrays here, but you can use the operator for any enumerable variable you may have. That's all about the first overload. Let's check the second one. It determines whether any element of a sequence satisfies a condition. It means here, we check the elements of a sequence, if any one satisfies a condition. It means also that we set a condition for this operator. We use the operator in this way. We set any, and then use a lambda expression in the brackets. If you don't know what is lambda expression or how to use it, please check the following video on my channel. I explained it in detail. Let's see the following query to understand the operator better. I have again the same integer array. Here I used any operator, but I have an expression in the brackets. I used function with a variable, for example x. And using this variable I set a condition. The condition here is to check if any number in the array is greater than 3. It means, we check each number in the array if it's greater than 3. Once we get a number greater than 3, the result will be true. As you see, we have the number 4 here which is greater than 3. So one element satisfies the condition. Therefore the result is true. Let's check the next query. Here I have the same array, but I have another condition. Here I want to check if any element is greater than 1. So we check the first number. It's not greater than 1. Then we check the next number, which is greater than 1. So we have a number greater than 1. In this case we don't need to check the next numbers, because we already have an element, which is greater than 1. So the execution will be interrupted and we get true as result. This is very important to know about this operator. This will save execution time. Let's check another query. I have again the same array, but the condition now is to check if any number is greater than 5. As you see, no number is greater than 5. The result will be false in this case. This is how to use this operator in a LINQ query. I used it here also only for arrays, but you can use it for any enumerable variable. That's all about any operator. Let's now move to UiPath to implement some examples using this operator. I have here a variable result. It's of type Boolean. I will store the query result in this variable. Let's add a sign activity to write the query. This example will be also about arrays. The examples later will be about data tables. Here I have a string array, which contains 4 different names. After that I used any operator without anything. It means I use the first overload of this operator. This query means, that I want to check if the array contains any element. Let's add write_line activity to print out the result. Now I will run the code to check the result. If you like my videos, please don't forget to subscribe my channel. As you see, I got true because the array is not blank and it contains at least one element. Let's change the query and use the second overload of any operator. For that I will add function with a variable, for example name. Now I want to check if any element is equal to 𝗏. So we have here the array. Then the operator any with lambda expression. Here I have function with variable name. Using this variable I check if the array has this name at least once. Let's run the code again to check the new result. As you see, I got true because we have the name 𝗏 in the array. Let's change the query again and set a name, what we don't have in the array, for example Andreas. I will execute it again. As you see, I got false because we don't have the name Andreas in the array. This is how to use any operator in method syntax. Let's switch to the next example about data tables. I have build data table activity. The table will be stored in this variable. It's of type DataTable. And here I have the variable result. It's of type Boolean, to store the output of the query. Let's see the table. It consists of two columns, ID and city. We have different IDs and cities. I will write a query to check if the table contains a specific city at least once. It means I want to use any operator to check if a city appears at least once in the column city. For that I will add an assign activity. I will write the query using method syntax. So first I have the data table. After that I use the second overload of any operator. Here I defined a function with a variable c. Using this variable I check the content of column city, if it's equal to 𝗏. It means here that I want to check if the column city contains the city 𝗏 at least once. I will add write_line activity to print out the result. Let's run the code to check the result. As you see, I got true because I have the city 𝗏 in column city. Now I will write exact the same query, but using mixed syntax. What does the query mean now? In this part here I loop all rows of the data table. In each loop I check if the city is equal to 𝗏. And I select each row, where the city is 𝗏. It means until this point I have a data table, which contains only rows, where the city is 𝗏. After that I used any operator without lambda expression. It means here that I want to check if the data table contains any elements. It means, if we have 𝗏 in city column, we will get true, else we will get false as output. Let's run the code to check if we get true again like in the previous query. As you see I got true again, which means that we have 𝗏 city in the table. So we got the same result in both queries. I use different ways to write the same query. And in each one I use different overload of the operator any. Let's now move on to the next example. I have here again the same data table. Here are the columns ID and city. But now I have a new column, continent. It contains different continents. I want to write a query where I want to group the rows using continent column. After that I want to check if any continent contains at least 4 cities. Let's see how to do that. I will write the query again in an assign activity. What does the query mean now? In this part of the query I loop all rows. The rows will be grouped using continent column. The groups will be stored in this variable. After that I select each group using the variable. So the result until this point is the following. I have the following 6 groups, because I have 6 different continents in the table. Each group contains the following rows. This is how the groups look like up to this point. After that I used any operator to check if the count of any group is greater than 3. Count is the count of the rows in the group. It means that I want to check if any continent contains more than 3 cities. As you see, we already have 2 groups, which have more than 3 cities. Therefore the result should be true later. I will execute the code to check if I get true or false. As you see, we got true. So we have at least one continent which contains more than 3 cities. Let's change the number to 5. I will execute it again. Now I got false, because we don't have any continent in the table, which contains more than 5 cities. We already have here 5 cities in Asia continent, but not more than 5, therefore the result was false. This is also how can we use any operator with group operator. Let's move on to the next example. This example is very important for you, if you are using LINQ queries for data tables, and you get the following exception. The source contains no data rows. This appears once you have a query, which doesn't return an output, because no data meets the condition you are using in the query. Let's see this example to understand what I mean, and how can you avoid this exception. I have here these 2 variables. Both of type DataTable. And here I have build DataTable activity. The table will be stored in this variable. I have the same table, what I showed you in the previous example. It consists of 3 columns. I want to write a query to get all rows, where the city is equal to Cairo. In this table I have the city Cairo only once, therefore I should get this row as output. And here I have this assign activity, where I wrote the LINQ query. The query is to loop all rows of the table. And it checks the column city, if it's equal to Cairo. After that I select the rows, which meet this condition. The output will be converted to DataTable. The result will be stored in this variable. At the end I have this loop, to print out the content of each column from the output table, what I got from the LINQ query. Let's execute the code to see what will we get as output. As you see I got only one row, where the city is Cairo. So the query works fine, if we have any matches. Let's now change the name of the city to a new one, what we don't have in the table. I will write for example 𝗟𝗟𝗡𝗏. Let's execute it again. As you see, I got an exception, that the source contains no data rows. Let's see how can we change the query and use the operator any, to avoid this exception if we don't have any matches. First thing I have to do is to clone the output table in this way. What does this part mean? Clone a table with another table is nothing but only getting the same structure from the other table. In other words, this activity here is to have the same columns in the output table, what I have in the other table. It means, I have 3 columns in this table, and no columns or rows in the output table. Once I clone the tables, the output table gets the same columns from the other table. Before executing this activity, the output table contains no columns or rows. But after executing the activity, output table has 3 columns, but no rows. Clone is to get only the columns, but not the rows. It means, both tables have now the same columns, but this table has rows, what we defined in build data table activity. But the output table doesn't have any rows now. That's all about Clone DataTable. Now we have to change the query as following. Instead of selecting row, I will add the row into the output table in this way. This statement means that I want to add each row to the output table, which meets the condition of where operator. Before the query, I will add the function if. After the query, I will write the following. What does it mean now? I loop the rows of the data table. Then I check the column city, if it contains the following city. Once this condition is true, I will add the row to the output table. This is the query, but before the query I have function if. As you know, if function has the following structure. We have a condition. If the condition is true, then part will be executed. If the condition is false, else part will be executed. The condition in our example is the query with the operator any. It means, I execute the query and then I check if the query returns an output. This will be checked using the operator any. If the query returns an output, I will select the output table as output from the query. But if the query doesn't return a value, I will get an empty table, which has only columns, but no rows, because I am using clone function again. If you want to learn more about if function, please check the following video on my channel. Let's change the name of the city to Cairo, to check first if I will get the same result, what I got using the previous query. Let's execute the code to check what happens. As you see, I got again the same result, only one row where the city is Cairo. So it works fine if we have any matches. Let's now change the city name again and write a name, what we don't have in the table. In the last query we got an exception. Let's see if we get an exception using this new query. As you see, we didn't get output from the query, but also no exception. It means, the query returned an empty table consisting of 3 columns because of clone function. And the loop works also fine, because we already have 3 columns, but there are no rows in the table, therefore we didn't get any output in the console. This is how can we use any operator to avoid exceptions in the query. I recommend you to use this type of query for all queries you are writing for a data table, or also any other data types like arrays, XML, etc. You can use it in method syntax, or also in mixed syntax. Let's now move to the last point in this video. The difference between all and any operators. As mentioned before, both operators are quantifier operators. The result of both operators is of type Boolean. We only have 2 differences between both. All operator is used to check whether all elements in a sequence satisfy a given condition or not. It means each element in the sequence should meet the condition, so that the result is true. But any operator is used to check whether any element in a sequence satisfy a given condition. It means at least one element in the sequence should meet the condition, so that the result is true. The second difference is that we get true if we use all operator for an empty sequence. For example, the following query. I have an empty array with the operator all. The result of this query is true. But if we use any operator for an empty sequence, we get false. These are the 2 differences between all and any operators. I hope you enjoyed the video and could learn something new and interesting. If you like my videos, please subscribe my channel and share the video with your friends. If you have any questions about this operator or any other topic, please don't hesitate to write us back. Thanks for watching and have a great day.